never bring a pen. I brought a pen.
Okay.
No, I've left one in my bag now. It's kind of hit or miss for me.
I'd like to call the Monday, March 8th regular school board meeting to order. We'll first start with roll call. Sue.
Charles Blacklands.
Here.
Kevin Boyles.
Here.
Tom Hagelin.
Here virtually.
Ruth Nelson.
Here.
Bob Nystrom.
Here.
Janice Shogren.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Just an announcement before the meeting. Due to the current federal and state emergency declarations, the Minnesota directive to residents to stay at home and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting of the Brainerd School Board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D.021. Meetings by telephone or other electronic means. Persons may monitor this meeting from a remote location by watching on YouTube Live. This meeting is being recorded. Access to the recording will be made available on the school district's website as soon as is reasonably possible. Next, we'll go for the approval of the agenda as
Should we do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No?
Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Got ahead of myself. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion by Director Nelson, second by Director Boyles to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
We have to do a roll call.
Okay. Roll call, Sue.
Kevin Boyles.
Aye.
Tom Hagelin.
Aye.
Ruth Nelson.
Aye.
Bob Nystrom.
Aye.
Janice Shogren.
Aye.
Charles Blacklands.
Aye.
All pass.
Thank you. Superintendent Larson,
All
district
right.
recognitions.
All right. I would love to give the district recognitions tonight. Congratulations to the Brainerd Warrior Dance Team. The Brainerd finished first place in both jazz and high kick at the section championships for the third year in a row. So congratulations to those athletes. They're headed to the state tournament this Friday and Saturday at the Edina High School. Congratulations also to the girls Nordic ski team for finishing as section champions, as they'll be headed to the state tournament on Thursday at Giants Ridge in Biwabic, Minnesota. Congratulations to the Nordic skier Lily Schaefer, who is in the girls individual section championship, as she will be competing at the state tournament on March 11th at Giants Ridge as well. Congratulations to Nordic skiers Brian Cady, Noel Robertson, Mitchell Newman, Eli Knapp, and Jacob Olson for qualifying for the state tournament, which will be held this Friday in Giants Ridge. Congratulations to the Warrior Alpine skier Brandon Neifert, who is the boys' individual section champion, and he will be competing at the state tournament on March 10th at Giants Ridge in Biwabic, Minnesota. Congratulations to the boys' alpine ski team for finishing as section champions, as they will be competing at the state tournament on Wednesday, March 10th, 2021 at Giants Ridge. Congratulations to the girls' alpine ski team for finishing as section champions, and they will be competing at the state tournament also on Wednesday at Giants Ridge. Congratulations also to the Brainerd High School for being granted permission from MDE to be a state-approved online provider for students in grades 9 through 12. And that is something that they have been working on for a couple of years, and we got permission to have our own online school within our school. And so congratulations to Andrea, Tim, and the whole team for making that a reality. So we're really proud of everybody. Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bob, if I could just comment, I just want to say a congratulations to Charlie Campbell and his activities team, all of our coaches and our athletes. I mean, as the parent of a high school athlete, I didn't necessarily know that we would get to this point and that these students would be finishing a season with masks on, practicing, working out as hard as they have. And to see so many headed to the state tournament too, to get to this point just feels like a huge victory. And
Yeah.
I just want to say a huge thank you to all those coaches and congrats to the athletes.
Very nice.
Thank you. Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, there's so much to be thankful for that's happening within the school district. So, great news. Okay, next we move on to the public input. And due to the COVID, we normally would have speakers out in the hallway that could come in one at a time, but I don't believe we have a speaker in
I
person.
think we do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We do. And then we
Okay.
have some that came through Communications 181 as well.
Okay,
So,
we'll start with our guest. Please come forward to the table and give us your name.
Okay. Bueno, primero me llamo Jan Kurtz. First, my name is Jan Kurtz, and I am a former teacher that was brought on board by that man up there, Bob Gross. I've been in this community since 1982, retired in 2014, and it took me through Franklin, Brainerd High School, and I finally graduated, and my last 22 years were at the college. And as Frida, she had to say something in Spanish today, I taught Spanish and Latin American studies. So I am here with a message of culture and language as you go forth and name this new part of the building or the new building. And when I came here, I was part of a foreign language department. And when we changed the name to world language, all of a sudden we were a little more included. That was a difficult step. A quick story is that at the time, even between languages, we didn't want any divisiveness. So when we got to things like the homecoming parade and what we were going to say on our float, so that we had all of our languages at the time that were German, French, Latin, and Spanish, we said unite to win. And everybody else said fight, beat them to the ground, and, pick up the pieces. Words matter. So I look at choice of words for this new center. I feel that choosing at least one Ojibwa word, you were looking for a geographical area. I Googled the word for Mississippi, and I don't know the pronunciation for sure, but I know Mary Sam or someone can come up with it. But it was like the Gitchizibbi. I think we can do this. It's not a hard spelling, and it almost sounds like Mississippi. If we have Brainerd in the name, maybe Mississippi, or go to the origin of the culture and say, what is an important word, which, by the way, is not 27 letters long, but what is a doable word that will represent the origin language of this area, or one of the early ones, taking the past and history and creativity and richness. Okay, let's have Brainerd, because that's another part of the history. So we've got past, present. The other word I would ask you to choose is culture. I've seen, the arts and music and all that. Every culture has arts and music. If we can be inclusive of that Ojibwa word and use the word culture, I believe we've covered our past and our present. And what better time than right now to be inclusive and futuristic? We don't know what culture is going to be here. Long Prairie has got 52% of their kiddos are Latin American, Spanish-speaking background. They did not see that 10 years ago. So by culture, maybe it could be the Brainerd Gitchizibbi Cultural Center. I'm not positive of how this would. But when I just saw Brainerd in that name, it just was so one-dimensional to me. So I came in person tonight because I've spent my entire career in this town. Oh, that's my Ojibwa bag, by the way, given to me by my granddaughter for Christmas. I've got a Guatemala bag inside of that. I just had to be the walking piece of yo no entiendo inglés, gracias person in town. I don't know. He's got the background on me for that, or maybe others. But how could we make this a bigger picture? Past, present, future. And if you really know me, you probably know it's also a little subliminal, because when you just start putting words in and using them, minds and people and action change. And they don't even have to know what hit them. That's what happened with tacos and enchiladas. So please, naming is sacred, naming is important, words matter. So, muchas gracias, merci, danke, miigwech. That's what I came to say.
Thank you, Jan.
I'll get on my knees if I have to. Okay?
Okay. Jody, did you want to say anything, or you want to wait for later? Wait for later? Okay. Corey, you had a couple of comments? Buenas noches.
Oh, buenas noches.
Cute.
Okay, this is a letter that came into the communications email address. It says, "School board members, the swim community is very concerned about the aquatic center scoreboard. We understand the cost associated with a new scoreboard. The potential revenues that this will generate for the district with a new scoreboard purchased by the selling of advertisement are limitless. We feel that moving the decade-old scoreboard into a brand-new facility with a couple new panels for a total cost of around $11,000 is a bandage to a brand-new facility. This money should be used toward the new system that represents the amazing facility. The old scoreboard will limit the ability to handle large events and the potential revenue. We are currently having issues with it even working. We will be forced to use whiteboards and other means to handle these meets, which will be added costs with staffing. We also feel that adding a new scoreboard down the road will only increase the cost of purchasing it. We feel the community supported this referendum under the impression that we will be getting a brand-new aquatic center that will last 50 years. We need to start with a new scoreboard. It is the right thing to do. We voted to do the right thing. The scoreboard is the life of the pool. We are hoping the project oversight team, district administration, and the school board feel the same way. We feel the new scoreboard is a standalone issue for a new facility. We understand there are many projects that need upgrades, but this scoreboard is the only one that will bring in revenue and pay for itself over time. Please move forward with a revenue-generating scoreboard in the brand-new aquatic center. This will be the best aquatic facility in outstate Minnesota. We need to complete this project the right way. Thank you." Signed, Ryan and Marcia Rosenwald, Holly and Chris Olson, Alyssa and Steve Keepers, Paul and Karen Erickson, Jeff and Mary Matson, Ann and Chad Stenglein, Dan Anderson, Hal Peterson, Jessica and Wade Hopajoki, John and Chris Semke, Mary Strife, and Michelle and Jamie Tottage.
Can
Thank
you
you.
run that off and see to it that Sue gets that, so she has all those names?
I have a copy.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the regular board meeting on February 22nd. Would someone make that?
I move to approve the minute.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Blackland, second by Director Sjogren to approve the minutes of February 22nd. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call.
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Bob Nystrom,
Yes.
Janice Sjogren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklance,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the consent calendar and presentation of additional bills for payment. You should have all received that in your packet. Are there any questions?
I just have a question. I don't know if you can answer it. I'm just curious what flower gongs
Yeah,
are.
me too. Anybody know?
I sent an email to Tammy, but she must not have had time today to get back to me, so. You don't know what flower gongs are? I'm assuming it's some musical. Anyone out there in the?
I don't.
Yeah.
I think it may be a feature for their playground that they were awarded foundation grants to purchase.
Oh,
I think they are
So it's a playground
musical. It's a playground thing, but are musical. Oh, Tammy says she can explain if she wants.
She's on.
She's
Oh, great.
wonderful.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure, I'm sorry, I don't have my headphones with me right now, but I was awarded a 4A grant and it paid in about half of the flower gongs that I had written the grant for. So the Baxter PTO was willing to pitch in and pay the second half. And the flower gongs will be 4 standalone flowers, each a different color. And each gong has 4 separate petals with an attached mallet to that flower. When you take the mallet and touch a petal, it makes a sound. So in theory, we'd have about 16 different sounds, 4 on each flower. And the grant was written to help be a social, interactive piece out on the playground to help children come together and connect. And in particular, it was written with special needs in mind. And we do have the ASD program over at Baxter right now. And thinking that that's kind of a level playing field item out on the playground where many kids can come together and laugh and join in and play together. So it's why I wrote the grant. And then since I only got partially funded, we could have gotten 2 of the flowers, but PTO pitched in so we could get all 4.
Oh, great.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah,
Sounds fun.
thanks,
We'll
Tammy.
we'll have to
Very
have a
cool.
field trip out to play the flower gun.
Board retreat.
We can all play. Yeah. Is it a mallet or something that you hit them with?
She said they were attached to it.
Yes, there's a mallet that would be attached by a cord so that it would not get lost. And of course, they're for outdoors, so they're made to last outdoors. We won't be able to install them until the ground, presents itself this spring that we can get them installed. And Reed and Buildings and Grounds helped me look at the specs to say that we could go ahead and install them without a cost.
Very cool.
Any
I
other
would
questions?
move to approve the consent calendar.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Sjogren, second by Director Blacklance, to approve the consent calendar as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call?
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Bob Nystrom,
Yes.
Janice Sjogren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklance,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Haglin,
Yes.
unanimous.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to new business. We'll have the presentation of Blueprint 181 project update. Damian Williams.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Here is our bond improvements update for March 8th, 2021. Can everybody see my screen okay? Tonight we're going to talk about project updates, and we're going to be talking about the Garfield Gym Edition pricing. Brainerd High School, Scott Whitmore is here to join us. So Scott, take it away.
All right, Brainerd High School, Area 2, which is the vast majority of the Performing Arts Center. We got vinyl wall coverings going up. That's the top right picture there. It's kind of that blue wavy pattern. And actually, they wrapped that up today in the Area 2 in the auditorium. We are working on installing the theatrical equipment and finishes. You can see lower right-hand picture, our backing for our lights going on. Most of it's painted out. Wood maple trims going on today. We got our acoustical grids. They're going to start showing up to the end of this week for installation. And yeah, the rest of the banner boxes, all that fun stuff is being installed currently. Area 10, which are the upper and lower left-hand side pictures. We are working on precast walls and stadias. The only walls that are remaining are about 4 panels on the east side, and then we've got the little bump out on the south side. We'll be wrapping them up by Wednesday, Thursday at the latest. Immediately following that will be our joists and getting the roof going. Once we got the roof going, then we can control we're in control in that space, and it's all hands on deck. Area 8, Area 6, fax rooms are working on finishes. The flooring crews are there this week installing VCT and epoxy flooring. Once those are complete, we'll start bringing in our MEP finishes and the kitchen equipment. We did extend the CTE wing to the south. We are digging and pouring our final footing for that expansion this week. And that's actually going really, really well. We're tracking very nicely in there. All the concrete's poured. We're just working on some structural steel and framing on the inside. And then Area 8 is finished for now until we get the rest of the pool tied in. Picture there that you're looking at, top left, auditorium pack lobby. You'll see everything's painted out, wood backing's all up. Our architectural stone on the south side is complete. All of our ceramic tiles installed. We do have stairs coming at the end of the month, or not stairs. The theatrical seating is coming for installation at the end of the month. On the left-hand side is the vinyl wall coverings. And the last of that ceiling grid will be going in this week. Again, this picture is our theatrical rigging installation, which is ongoing, will be ongoing until the end of the month. And you can see in the picture on the right-hand side, our AV equipment has been installed. So you can see a black box hanging down from the proscenium opening, and that is the projector screen. South Campus, I guess I should say, is there any more questions, or are there any questions for the North Campus?
No.
Perfect. South Campus, we are Mindoli pulling plan review complete. We got an improved set of plans there. Our Mindoli building plan review, which was submitted on January 20th, we are still sitting in queue, waiting for the review to start. Our MDH, our Minnesota Department of Health application, was sent off. Our pre-construction meeting will be March 15th from 10 to 2 p.m. PR1 will be issued March 12th. And just a reminder that May 31st, 2021, demolition begins. Any questions for South Campus?
Scott, what does PR1 mean?
That will be all of the VE items that we had discussed prior to accepting the bids. So it's proposal request number 1. And that will be where we'll be looking to capture some about over $1 million in savings on the project.
That's great.
Any questions for South Campus?
No?
All right.
Thanks,
Well,
Scott.
that concludes it for me.
Thanks, Scott.
Warrior Area Learning Center, A wing and B wing are complete. We're completing the remaining finishes at the large motor room. Life safety, mechanical and electrical systems are complete. Final cleaning has been ongoing. Testing and balancing on commissioning is in process right now. Basically waiting for a few items, few COVID delayed items to get installed. And other than that, we're ready to move in. So building is looking great, and been nice to see all the work done by so many. So Garfield Elementary, we got Kyle with us today, Kyle Walter. He'll take us through Garfield.
Good evening, everyone. So we are completing our phase 2 schedule and getting that issued to contractors. And then we've been procuring materials, long lead time items, and getting those on site early to help with any delays we may see later on in the summer. And then tonight, the big item bringing forward to you guys is approval to move forward with the construction of the Garfield gym expansion. So we've received our pricing from the contractors, and then tonight would be looking for approval. In your board packets, you should have seen a narrative looking for what we're looking for approval, and then an attachment that showed the scope and also a narrative, and I can share that if we would like.
Yeah, if you could, Kyle. You know, maybe it would be helpful just to hear where that added cost is coming from. I know it was in the board packet, but go ahead.
Yep. And I apologize. I'm just trying to get everything casted here. There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the added cost from what we've seen before originally, we had a budgeted construction cost of $600,000 when we brought this to the board previously. And I will, sorry, one. And those added costs came from some cost escalations in masonry and steel is what we're capturing it. So we have approximately from our original $600,000 budget, we have about $52,000 worth of added construction costs for cost escalations for materials. And then the remaining $57,000 was for bleachers. Originally, what we indicated on our presentations previously, there was no bleachers included in this facility. So we are carrying a budget number for bleachers, and then we were still waiting for some sprinkler pricing. So we have a budget line item in for sprinkler pricing for that gym as well. So working with Jody and her team, they have a set of bleachers in there currently. And in order to support some of their activities, their grandparents' day and similar activities, we're really looking at adding another set of bleachers to help support that since they're typically at capacity during those events. So between the cost escalation, the bleachers, and some sprinklers, that takes us to the approval of not to exceed $710,000 tonight. Can you guys all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so very similar of what you saw previously, or for those of you board members that saw this previously, just talking about our scope, and that's adding 1,500 square feet to the existing gym and making this gym a full court gym. And that would include taking down the exterior wall, expanding the gym out with CMU walls to match the existing facility, and then having a brick facade that also matches the facility, and then some tweaks to our loading dock area and some exterior here, but adding new lighting, extension of the mechanical and electrical. We also have some additional slab on grade, and then we will be, Garfield currently has a wood gym. We will be expanding that wood gym and then sanding down and refinishing and striping that wood gym that's currently there. So it'll be 6 new basketball hoops, some acoustical wall panels similar to what you've seen at the other gyms throughout Brainerd, and then new paint as well. Any questions on that?
Anything?
You may want Jody to come and visit a little bit.
Jody, do you want to join us?
Want to talk it all about?
Yeah.
Sure, thanks for having me. Obviously, this is a passion project for us over at Garfield on the northeast side of town. And one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is our musical programming. We have to have matinee shows and we have to turn people away when we have day shows. We also turn people away at night right now because we just can't go past fire code. And we are sometimes probably beyond that on a normal event. So I think when we talked about bleachers, we knew that we couldn't have a reduction of seating if we were going to have an expanded gym. Part of that expansion was the need for additional space for those events that we do have. And we have a great music program over there with Heather Larson leading that way. I think as we look at the use of our facility increasing also, we know that obviously gym time in any community is a hot commodity on any given weekend. When we aren't in a COVID era, it's hard to find gym space. And I think knowing that we would have a facility that other people could use outside of the time that we use it during our day. We currently use both our cafeteria and our gym all day long to have FIAD or lunch or breakfast in. So we know that the facility space is definitely going to be used, and would advocate that, unfortunately, extra expenses due to COVID, I know, are not at our control, nor are they at yours. But we definitely know the impact that this project would have at our school and for our children and our families.
One thing that I would like to add is Garfield is the only elementary without a full-size gymnasium at this point. And that was one of the commitments that we were making, is to have a full-size gym in each of the elementary schools. And so this would finish it off. And the bleachers are, right now it's about a 2/3 size gym.
Yep.
And so it would expand it to a full gym with full seating like the other schools have.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we've already committed to the 600,000. We're voting on the
Well,
extra money.
no, we have to vote on the whole thing, but it came over budget from what we were anticipating in the
okay.
estimates. Yes.
So my question would be on the bleachers piece, why wasn't that included in the original scope?
Can you answer that, Kyle
So-
and Damien?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did not include them in the original scope because of the size of the width of the current gymnasium as it sits now would not support a full court use with those bleachers. They would actually go across the baseline into the actual basketball court itself. So any after school activities or any games that would play there, those bleachers would hinder the use of that court. Working with the architect since then and talking with Jody, we've done some adjustments within that facility now, and what we're proposing is shifting the striping closer to the planned south wall. And if you can see my cursor, shifting that down to allow a 3-row bleacher set. So that, and currently the old ones were being removed because we had to refinish that whole floor. So that's why we originally did not anticipate having bleachers in there.
So I remember I would coach in there in the evenings with the youth basketball, and there would always be a center or a movable table that had your sound work or your soundboard and all that type of stuff
Yep.
to it. And then if ever there was, I think, archery and that type of thing,
Oh, yeah.
made it really tight in there. So will there be space on that where the bleachers will be to help restore it so you'll be able to still access the full gym when you do have archery or anything else that might?
That is our hope. Like I said, we do some fun things. I think they do them across the district. They're not unique to our Phi Ed program. But I definitely know that the space that we would add would be beneficial for many things and many activities that we do. I know that space is tight. You know, we are lengthening the court to get a full-size space. We don't have a lot of we can't make the whole gym wider either. So we are limited in that sense. But in talking with Kyle, I think we can shift some of that flooring so that those bleachers can be used by fans and still allow those activities to occur in the gym. Our primary use, when we look at it on a daily basis, we have, again, not in a COVID time now, but when we're able, all of our large school events are held in that space. And right now, we probably have 2 grade levels that have to sit on the floor as it is, while the other 3 grade levels are able to sit in our current bleachers. So we don't have the ability for everyone to be able to sit in a bleacher either yet. And certainly that would benefit us long-term for the activities that we do in there on a weekly and monthly basis.
Great.
Yeah, I've gotten caught a couple of different times standing out in the entryway trying to listen to the concerts because there just isn't enough space in your gymnasium.
If you're not there an hour early, you might not get in.
You don't get in. Yeah.
And that's normal. It's a good thing. It's a good problem to have. I always tell Heather that. Thanks for another great show, because we had to turn people away again. We don't charge, so that's the benefit.
So what will it do from a seating capacity perspective? What can we currently accommodate in there, and what will it with the new bleachers?
So we're still locking down the actual size. Jody and I actually spoke earlier today on the actual size of the bleacher set. Because if you look at our drawing here that I have up, there is a current exit door that we have currently on that planned north wall that will remain. So we're not able to have a continuous bleacher set. There's going to be a break. So I've reached out to Lowell Architects to talk about what that means for maybe looking at another set on the opposite side of that door, but still allowing us egress. So we have not settled on a full count on what that would increase, but what we are increasing is that floor space, and Jody and her staff end up setting up a lot of folding chairs.
Sure.
So we're able to increase that capacity by, let's say another 24 feet in the gym to get more actual folding chairs and some floor seating as well. So
I think our official fire number is 1,100. right now. Obviously, with more bleachers and the ability to put more chairs on the floor, we would hopefully be able to get anyone who wanted to come to an event into that event on any given night. Even though we are running matinees and they're typically full too during the day for families. So dependent upon the bleacher set, we could hopefully have, I don't know, maybe 1,300 guests at an event and get a couple more hundred people in would be our hope.
And is that what fire code is based off of? I'm naive in this. To me, is it seating space or is it the size of the space that you're in?
Size, but let's have these guys.
Yeah, that would.
Do you guys want to address that question?
Yeah, absolutely. It's based off of kind of the square footage of that. So if we went off of just bleacher capacity, it would only end up being sometimes maybe 100 to a couple hundred. But that's the actual square footage space in the facility. And then they actually measure kind of the egress and the door openings too. That also locks us in. So if you look at our facility, we have 2 single doors exiting out, and then we have double doors going in back into the facility. So it's actually the width of the door system that dictates kind of how many occupants we can have, as well as how many exits. So there's a couple factors that feed into that, but it's not just the bleacher quantity. It's actually the square footage of the facility and how many exiting opportunities we have.
So because we're increasing the size of the space is why we can add more seating.
Well, we also in phase 1, I'm gonna use a wrong term, probably plan west. I'm not sure which wall it is, wherever its cursor is hiding down in the southeast corner there. We put another full set of outdoors in phase 1 because we only had 1 set of doors, and it was a potential problem when we had that many people in the space. Even though we had the single exit doors on the far ends, we did add a second full set of doors just for our own in and out. It was taking a long time for us when we had a school event to get everybody back to where they needed to be at the end of that. So we now have 2 in-out full swing sets of doors and then the fire exit on the ends of that gym.
I'll speak for myself only, and I don't know if Kevin's feeling the same way. We're newer to approving these projects, and it seems like sometimes we're saying no to some things and sometimes we're saying yes to some things. And I know we have this project oversight team to lean on, so is there anyone who wants to give us advice from that team? You know, I just feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say we just had a comment about no to a scoreboard and then yes to an added set of bleachers, and there's probably a way that we make these decisions. I'm just new and don't know how, when we do and do not approve extras on projects.
Yeah, correct. We had talked extensively, I think at the board table too, on the initial 600,000. And just for equity on all the school gyms. And we looked at the budget and we can afford to do this within our current scope. So we have the dollars to do it. So it's a lot to do with equity. And I mean, I've been in that Garfield gym too. And I'm the same way. I always end up standing in the doorway. So it's needed, and it was just overlooked when we first made the plan, so.
And
Now
another
the extra 100,000 is new tonight, but we did approve it at the Project Oversight Committee.
Chair Nystrom? Chair Nystrom?
Yes, Tom, please.
Are you looking to take action now or a little bit later in the meeting?
I was thinking later, or should we do it now?
It's next.
Okay, we're gonna take it next.
Okay.
Do you have any comments, Tom?
Well, I just would be in support of this. The equity piece, plays throughout all the decisions we've made over the last couple of years, and to me, it makes total sense to proceed, even though it's over budget, but to proceed.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I would like to add for those who haven't been at a program at Garfield, there is no stage or anything. So even though the gym looks really big, we're landlocked. This is about as far as we can go and about as big as we can go. And so there is a portable stage that comes out for all of the events on the one end. And then the people are sitting in folding chairs behind it, and then the bleachers on the side. So that takes up a lot of room to have the stage, but that's how we do it at Garfield, so.
I'll just echo
Yeah, and Lane,
Director
I can talk to-
Hageling's comments and say that in the end, we want this facility to be on equal footing with all of the other schools in the district. It would seem unusual to disadvantage that facility, in my opinion, so I'm with Director Hagelin on that.
Okay, Director Hagelin, you were starting to say something?
Sorry, this was Kyle with ICS.
Oh.
So I just wanted to touch on Lane's comment to this overall size. We actually, with expanding this gym, have to go back to the city for a variance within this in order to ensure that we can do that. So currently, we have the documents over to the city for a variance in order to accomplish this as well. So we will be going to the Planning Commission in order to review this. So yes, we are maxed out on the property for the size we have of this gym. So, but it is very comparable size-wise to anybody that's been in Harrison's new gym. It is comparable size-wise to Harrison's new facility. So,
Thanks, Kyle. Would someone like to make a motion? Are you ready for the motion?
Are we doing, okay, I'll move approval of the construction phase of the Garfield Elementary Gymnasium not to exceed $710,000 as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion by Director Nelson, second by Director Boyles, to approve the construction phase of the Garfield Elementary Gymnasium expansion not to exceed $710,000 in construction costs and as presented. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Bob Nystrom,
Yes.
Janice Shogren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklance,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Haglund,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson.
Yes.
All carried.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yes,
you.
congratulations.
And we will welcome you to join us at any of our upcoming events. They will
We're
be
gonna come now.
fantastic.
And actually, we have it on our agenda. At
Yeah.
the April 8th meeting, we're going to have a tour of Garfield and hopefully Riverside too, because there's some neat things going on there right now too. So we'll get to those two buildings within the month.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jody.
Next, we have the presentation of the revised MSBA number 714 policy regarding fund balance. Marcy Lord.
Good evening.
I have 2 more slides.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you wait, Marcy?
Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry.
I
I
can
got
wait.
so excited about that, but you can just stay there. Damien, go ahead. Sorry
I won't
about
take
that.
long.
I thought they were done too. Sorry.
On Lowell Elementary, concrete slabs were installed in the lower level. The demo of the we're continuing demo in that lower level area, getting an early start, which is great. We're gonna have a busy summer this summer, so anything we can do ahead of time is absolutely awesome. The staff has been great there as far as giving us opportunity to get that early start. We're installing the steel studs for the music room, and then we've also roughed in the plumbing for the 2 new bathrooms in the lower level. So things are changing. We're going to slowly keep working on space down there just to get as much done as we can before school's out.
Can I jump
Any
in here
questions
for a
on that?
minute?
Sure.
I was at Harrison the other day, and when we had taken the tour, how there were just like the music wing, how they were gutting that out in the basement. Now, everything in the basement is gutted out except for the cafeteria and the nurse's office. Other than that, everything is empty. And so how Todd and his team are adjusting school without that whole basement, I'll never know. But I was just blown away when I went into the construction zone because it was so much more than I ever anticipated. So they're making great progress on that building.
Mark and Charles have done a really great job of working with Todd to capture space, and then they work very hard with him every day just to make sure we're not interrupting class and doing what we can to keep school on track. So
Good.
it's been really great to see. So we're ready for a busy summer. Getting ready. Riverside Elementary, we're going to start next week doing a similar fashion. We're going to start working in Area B in the center area and start capturing some storage rooms and start getting an early start there as well. So Mark has been working with Sheila and getting a plan in place. So again, we're gonna take advantage of anything we can to just make the summer go that much smoother. Construction coordination is taking place with the contractors. So again, Mark and Jesse, Mark Needham and Jesse Larkham are doing a great job of just meeting with the contractors and getting their plan nailed down for this summer. So it takes a lot of effort and a lot of good planning with all these contractors in order to do the millions of dollars worth of work in the short period of time we have in the summers. So I'm really impressed with the work these guys are doing. Any questions?
Anyone? No questions. Thanks, Damien.
All right.
Great report.
Thank you.
No, Marcy.
Good evening. So in your board packet is an updated fund balance policy. At the previous board meeting, well, 2 previous board meetings, we talked about this. And there was some conversation about, goal setting and a timeline. So we looked at this policy, and actually I looked at some other districts as well. And one of the things that we found was when the unassigned general fund balance is projected to decrease, the school district shall initiate one or more of the following. So we did add that. It just seemed like a good, we are doing some of these measures as well, but it just seemed like a good fit for our district, something that we should strive for. And then we did keep it at the 10%, and we ran some numbers. If we try to do 10% in the next 5 years, that'd be about $400,000 per year that we'd need to put away. And so we were comfortable with that. We also ran 12.5%, and that seemed a little less attainable. So, and then we also updated the wording to attain rather than maintain. So it is a goal for the future to get it to the 10%, and then once we do that, we could maybe look at what does the future look like. Is there any questions on that?
I'd like to just remind that 12.5% is 1.5 months of operating, and that's actually what's recommended, but we just don't feel that we can get there at this time. But this would get us to over 1 month's worth of operating if we can increase our fund balance by $400,000 a year.
And 3 months is recommended. That's
Okay.
1.5 would be our goal, but 3 months is recommended.
3 months, right? You're right. Yep. We're just aiming for 1.5. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, 10% seems like a very prudent goal to shoot for.
Yep.
And when we have the policy, then it's something that we can work towards if it's in place.
Yep.
Is there any other discussion or questions? Director Hagelin?
No, I just want to commend Marcy and Lane for bringing this forward. Financially, I think it's the right thing to do. We have to get to a larger fund balance. You just never know on those rainy days when we're going to need it. So I appreciate the work, and I also appreciate the work of outlining what it takes as far as the 400,000 each year in order to get to that kind of a level. So if we're ready to take action, I would move forward with this revision to our policy.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Hagelin, second by Director Nelson, to approve the first reading of MSBA Policy 714 regarding fund balance. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to roll call.
Janice Shogren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklance,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Bob Nystrom.
Yes,
Unanimously carried.
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Marcy.
I'd like to remind the board that since there was significant change to this policy, this is not final approval yet. It's first reading, and then we'll approve it at the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, next we have a presentation of the naming of the Performing Arts Center coming from the task force. And Corey's going to speak and Superintendent Larson.
I guess I don't have any new information to add, but on the screen you can see the results of the committee, the task force work. And I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Corey, my question is, after the last board meeting, you did send out to all the task force members, just saying we were going to table it and put further thought. Did anyone come back with any comments or suggestions?
Nobody from the committee did. I did receive a couple of ideas from a community member, but I think you all were included on those emails.
Okay.
How many task force members are there? Roughly?
I don't recall. I
I have it
believe
here.
11 were in attendance, between
So
11
say
and
it's
12.
about 25.
Were invited
About
probably.
25, and about half of them attended.
And half of them attended. And do you know how many of those were school district members or affiliated with the school district directly or from the community? I think it was about 9 of those, I think, were affiliated with the school district.
I think Lane has it looks like she may have a list there, so she might
I
know.
do. Yes, 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people were from the school district that showed up.
Thank you.
And the policy, the overarching policy, I forget the policy numbers, like policy 560 or something like that.
Correct.
What's the origin of that? How was that crafted in the first place? I mean, where does that come from?
It's an MSBA model policy.
Okay.
This board adopted it about a year ago.
Okay, because I think it's important to understand that that's the framework within which we have to work.
Correct.
And I fear that some in the community haven't quite connected the dots on that piece, that there are some strictures and limitations in how that policy is written. Not only that trimmed us from the original 100 and plus submissions to the 50-some that received some consideration, but then further, and I know some of us on the board got correspondence from John Erickson. I had a detailed correspondence with John, and he really enlightened me, as only a former lawyer could, on sort of how that policy functioned and how that factored into the decision-making. So I think it's important to point that out.
I would also like to mention that this process of having this task force was voted on by this board. So they knew the process. Was that voted on in January maybe, or was it December?
January.
Okay.
I've got it in my.
Yeah, I think
January 25th.
I think I either motioned to have that go through or seconded it. But I still have it. So I'm not against the task force having a say with this. I will admit that I have some concerns about the general task force makeup. But with that being said, Corey or Lane, is this the same process that was used for the other naming processes within the school district?
Yes. It was the same process that we used for Baxter Elementary School and the Warrior Early Learning Center, pretty close to it. But we got it approved separately each time before we went forward with the naming process. We came with the process to the board and got approval of that. And this was approved January 25th, this process.
I think one of the things which is my responsibility, I guess, I don't know if I understood that there was potentially a difference in terms of where the community was included in this process. If there's a concern for whether or not we involve the community in this process or where we involve them, or if we're concerned about potential conflict of involving the community, I do have a concern where if conflict equals community engagement, that's conflict that we have to go through, I believe. This is a risk that we have to take as a board by involving the community, and that's how we achieve transparency, in my mind. I have some concerns about whether the community, maybe we potentially fell short in that process.
Okay. And I respect what you're saying, but as I look at this list that Corey presented before the meeting, we had a number of community members that didn't show up. And no offense to these people, they probably were busy. It included the mayor of Brainerd, some other people that had some of our different initiatives within the community, they weren't there. And it's the people that show up that make the decisions. And quite frankly, this thing, they weren't not making the decision, they were giving us recommendations. So that's what happened on that day, and I thought it was a really good cross-section of people within our school district, and we had at least 3 other people that were from the community.
So the only other addition I would make there, Bob, is that I think this is a lessons learned thing, just on process on something like this, where passions run high in the community on it. I don't really, I share some of Charles' concern about the makeup and then the ratios as it relates to community versus district people or whatever, but also the idea that 110 people took the time to send in these submissions. We should have issued from that committee some sort of publicly distributed, let's call it summary of what came in, so that everybody could have seen everything that came in and why certain things were excluded at the outset. And like I said before, it's interesting. I mean, I get a fair number of emails, but I've gotten more emails about this than I have about anything since joining the school board. So it's definitely an issue that has some passion behind it in the community, that's for sure. So I don't think, I don't have that much concern about errors in the actual process that was used. I have some concerns about the communication with the community as that process was going on.
Yeah, I thought the controversy in this would be that the committee would want to name it after a person, and because a lot of people did come forward with that. There were people like Bob Gross that they put forward, and we made it clear, that we didn't really want to have names, but people did submit them. But nobody sent me an email on a name. It's coming up with a really clever kind of name. And at first I thought the same thing. I thought it'd be cool. I'll just tell you, I thought the Paramount, I love the old Paramount Theater in Brainerd, and I thought it'd be a great name. But I'm not going to get passionate about that when it looks like people want it to go a different way. And quite frankly, we had all the stakeholders here, the major stakeholders that will be involved in this. And, it kept coming back. We want it to be a geographic name that when people come into the community, they know exactly where it is. They don't want to have to question that. And we wanted it to be broad enough to include outside of Brainerd also. That's why we included lakes.
And correct me, but there are multiple spaces within the Performing Arts Center that will have the ability to be named under perhaps a slightly more flexible naming convention, right?
Absolutely. At the very least, the concert hall and the black box will have naming, plus the lobby could even be named something.
That's where I kept coming back to at the end, is this isn't particularly scintillating or electric, but it is on point. And if you're trying to do events in there and you're trying to highlight where it is that this is happening, if there's an event coming and you're in Long Prairie or Walker or somewhere, it's very clear where the event is being held.
Right.
And I think the task force was pretty much unanimous with.
They were. This was a unanimous recommendation. And, you might think, well, what difference does it make that it's a geographic name? But let's say you're a fan of Engelbert Humperdinck, and you were from Rochester, Minnesota, and you had to find this, this Performing Arts Center. And if it has sort of a name that doesn't reflect our area, it's going to be harder for them to find. They might not even know it's in Brainerd. They're going to say, where is this place? So that was the other reason.
I think I see both sides of it. It's generating a lot of conversation, which I think isn't a bad thing. I think it's good that people want to be engaged in it. I'm understanding the idea that we want people from outside of the community to come in and understand it, but people from outside of the community didn't pay for this, aren't going to be the ones to predominantly use it. And when I think about wanting to have some affinity for the building, like to your point, you go down to St. Cloud and you say, well, I'm going to the Paramount, or I'm going to the Guthrie, or I'm going to the, it's a very long name, where's the performance at tonight? Well, it's at the Brainerd Lakes Center for the Arts. It doesn't roll off the tongue quite like maybe I was hoping. It doesn't shorten anyway, where it's like the So it's the BLCA, maybe that'll become what it is. Where's the performance at tonight? The BLCA, and maybe that's fine. I guess my question is, when does this decision need to be made? I'm sure, I understand there's signage and that sort of thing. Be somewhat to Charles and Kevin's point. I'm not sure, and maybe we don't want to open up Pandora's box, but is there any harm done? Maybe it came at a time when people felt like they didn't hear it, didn't know they could weigh in. I mean, we are living through pretty challenging times right now. I mean, I'm at my own home doing what I absolutely have to do every day, right? To get kids through school and to do your job and that kind of thing. And would there be a harm in opening it up again? The worst thing that could happen, and it's not a bad thing, but we could end up right back where we are, and then so be it. Or an amazing thing could happen, and a name could come forward that we would get more excited about and the community would feel more proud about. I don't know. And I don't even know if that's an option. I just throw it out there. I never think it hurts to be responsive. If we have the time to be, would it hurt? And I appreciate the process, and I don't want to step on the toes of anyone who's done any work. I just feel like it might not hurt to try again if we have time. And maybe we don't have time.
What is the process? Just help me along. What was the process again for the Baxter School?
We asked the community for ideas. No, I'm sorry, Baxter was a little different. The question to the community, we posed to the community at the board's direction was, should the new elementary school in Baxter be named Baxter Elementary, or should we look for a new name? The community voted for Baxter Elementary, and the board approved that. For the Warrior Center, the process was, we asked for ideas. We got together a group of stakeholders, really the people who had been involved in designing the building, the remodel project. We narrowed it down to, I think, 3 or 4 options, and then we brought those options to the community. The community voted, and I presented the results of that voting to this board, who then made a choice.
And the Warrior Learning Center was the top choice in that one, correct?
I believe that the numbers were very close.
Oh, okay.
Back to a deadline. What is a deadline that we have to have this figured out by? Does anybody know?
It's pretty soon because of the grand opening of the Performing Arts Center on May 1st, and they have to order the signage and such. But I know we're getting a lot of pressure to get a name, and so that's why we brought it forward when we did in January, because they were telling us that we were going to be on a tight time frame already. That doesn't mean that we rush into something if the board isn't ready to do that. Because we can open the Performing Arts Center without the name, but it'd be more fun to have the name when we open it.
Yeah, I appreciate Director Sjogren's words, and I'm probably more leaning towards the process here, Director Nystrom, or Chair Nystrom, that my concern again is the making sure that the community has that voice. And I know the community also sits here around the board, and that's the idea, I get that. But I feel we may have stumbled a bit in terms of that process. And
See,
Director Hagelin?
yes, sorry, Charles, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
oh, it's just I'm really from that process side, both in terms of where the process lies. I have an eyebrow raised, I guess, in terms of why we're different than, say, the Warrior Learning Center, and then also still my initial concern with this is is this an equitable group that gathered to make this decision, and that needs to continually be a piece of a foot that I lead with when it comes to the school district, but also my professional and personal life.
Okay.
So, Chair Nystrom?
Yes,
Chair Nystrom?
yes, Director Hagelin.
Yeah, I'd like that. Yeah, thank you. So, what I'm hearing is that maybe we just need to back up a little bit. And I would like to perhaps suggest that we ask for, say, 5 to 10 volunteers from the communities of Brainerd, Baxter, and Nisswa. Um, and not to exceed maybe even one district employee within that group, so that we really get the community involvement. And I would not suggest going to stakeholders that perhaps is a mayor or council member. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I would look for volunteers, and maybe we just take another stab at this. And one of the things that I've heard, and I agree with the comments that I forget what even the proposed name is because it is quite lengthy, that maybe that's another piece that we put in there. We'd like something that rolls off the tongue fairly easy, something that is shorter. And as far as the time, whether we have a name in a month or 6 months, I don't think it's the end of the world. We can have the grand opening and those kind of things. Sure, it'd be nice to have it, but I think we're better off to do it right. And what I'm hearing, and I would agree with the comments that have been made that, if we only had 8 members or 11 members and 8 of them were district employees, it maybe isn't, maybe we need to back up and redo that piece would be my thoughts.
Well, to be clear, this isn't a rebuke of the process that was used. I think when we approved it, we didn't really see how it would play out. We didn't see the fact that you would invite 25 people and in the end you only got half that number. Right. So you end up, so it's not an indictment of anything. It's really just trying to look forward. And I think, like Director Blacklance said, the idea that at minimum we could poll the community on 3 or 4 options that they get. It's still our decision, right? But at least there's an element to putting some stuff out there where we got 3 options at the last meeting, but it was basically, like I said, it was gray, charcoal, or ash. There wasn't a lot of variance between them. So it was, I'd like to see at least something else where, like Warrior Early Learning Center, where there's a little bit more perhaps put out there. And then, to take another run at perhaps our community member that spoke up this evening to kind of revisit, which I think Charles is trying to get at a little bit too. Did we do everything we could do from a heritage perspective, from a geographical heritage standpoint and history? And if that's just not doable, it's not doable, but did we really look at it with the right set of eyes?
Okay. So what I'm hearing from this board is that we would table this at this point and we would start the process over again, asking for suggestions from the community.
Volunteers from the community? Okay.
And Director Blacklance, would you
I'd very
agree
much
to
like
serve?
to. Thank you.
Okay. That would be great.
Are we also proposing that we would open back up for suggestions again from the community and not just solely review the same suggestions with a new committee? It seems to me this has generated enough interest in the community. I would be for opening it up again, even if it's gotten enough interest at this point. I don't even think we have to have this thing open for weeks and weeks. I think if it goes back out for 7 to 10 days, we have people's attention now. They're paying attention, and maybe their wheels have been turning, and they wish they had submitted a name.
Yeah, especially if we did some kind of outreach with the dispatch to kind of highlight this.
Sure, that would be great.
I think that would make a lot of sense to really kind of, because after that particular board meeting, it was Director Nystrom, you and I talked about that. And, the next day we voted on the South Campus thing, but the main story in the newspaper was that the Arts Center was.
Yeah.
So, clearly they know what the community is interested in, but we have a unique conduit to get information out there and maybe even, maybe an interview with some of you that were on the committee that explains why the half of those submissions didn't qualify, so we don't get more of those.
Good point.
Right. From my end too, my last comment is that I really do appreciate the effort that got us to this point. Though whether or not I feel comfortable with that process or not, I know there's a lot of effort. Lane, yourself, and Corey, I appreciate that. I know this type of discussion, I'm assuming on the end of a long day can be defeating, and I do apologize for that. That's not the intent. But definitely just wanted to get this right, wanted to make sure we involve the community and take time, and if we need to exhale a bit, before making that decision. I think it's appropriate.
And I also think that we can't forget about the current task members that came up with this. We need to keep them included.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that.
Sure.
Yep.
Corey, do you have any comments?
Nope.
Okay.
You need a motion to table it.
We haven't had any motions, have we? So I think we're
No.
okay.
So we're okay?
So we're okay. Yeah, because there wasn't a motion on the floor.
We voted originally on the process. Do you need anything from us as a board to go back out for this, or is just this discussion enough to move on? And
I think by tabling it, we can just bring it back on the table and start the process again. Would you agree with that, Superintendent Larson?
I wrote down a bunch of notes that I'm hearing. I do want to make one point, just because I was part of it, that I don't feel that the process failed. I think that we followed the process, and I think that all of the people that did show up, they came with good intentions. And so I really want to acknowledge the people who put a lot of heart and soul and time into doing the work. Ultimately, though, you have the authority to do this, because it says right in the policy that you decide the names of these buildings. And if you're not comfortable with it, it's okay to go back and do that. I just want to make sure that we're giving credit to the people who, for the work that they did do, because I do believe we followed the process that the board approved.
The one comment I would have that I've had a hard time with all along with this is I thought we were going to get 3 options, and I feel like this is just one option. Like you said, the gray and the, it's really one option. So the board didn't really, I think we may have come to this easier if there would have been some different, and then through discussion options.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And maybe even,
So do you want to keep that as one of your options? What is brought forward with, I mean, you can tweak it to ash or charcoal or whatever if you want to, but then look for 2 other options that can be brought forward where you could talk to the.
I would think this probably will be still
Yeah,
one of our
absolutely.
options.
And again, with an eye towards eventually polling in some way, if we can, the community to kind of get a gauge like they did, as I understood it, that's what they did for Warrior Early Learning Center, right? Was
I also want to keep in mind, though, or like to keep in mind, I should say, Director Hagelin's comment about, is it an added variable to this process that the name be a little bit more concise? Because if that's the
I
case.
think Director Sjogren commented on that too, and I think that's a good point. That it would be nice, this is the Paramount, or this is the,
Yep.
rather than, this is the Brainerd Lake Centers for the Arts, and how do you shorten that?
And to echo Superintendent Larson's comments, I agree that there was nothing wrong with the process. We voted on it, it happened. It just, I don't know, if it was a timing thing or something fell flat here. And to Ruth's point too, I think we didn't have options necessarily, didn't feel like that. I think that to honor this committee's work, it's fine, this should still stay at the table for one of the options. It would just be nice to maybe have another 2 options like we thought we were going to get.
Yep. I agree.
I would also echo what Lane said, that I was also part of that process, and we didn't really fight over anything. We had some disagreement. We had, over 100 recommendations, and it really became quite clear. It was a great discussion. So the group was very passionate, and they worked really hard to try to come up with a good name.
The one thing I do want to say, though, is that we talked a long time ago that there wouldn't be personal names on it. And so I think that, and I know that our committee was very strong on that they didn't want one person's name on that building when it was a voter-approved building.
And I think that's a good thing to
So
make.
is that okay to keep that?
I think that's fine as well.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's a number of reasons you don't want that.
Right.
You don't want to have something come to light later that makes you have to erase the name off of the building and create the controversy that would go with that as well.
Yep, that's right.
Yep.
Okay, well, Corey and I'll talk. We'll see what we can figure out. I've got lots of bullets here, so we'll get it. We'll get it right this time.
Okay.
Okay?
So for now, we'll table it, and we'll get the process started again.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to informational, and we'll start with Superintendent Larson on the Brainerd Public Schools Foundation.
All right, I'm gonna keep this short, but I want you to know that we just had the greatest foundation meeting the other day. It was just extremely exciting. As I said in your notes, I think it's easier for me to look from that. But they made over $85,000 at the big event this year. It was a 7% increase above the highest that they've ever made, which was last year. To them for being creative and working within the parameters that we were given, and oh my goodness, it was just super, super fun to be able to have those conversations. And so now they're really talking about what do we do next year, because now there's people saying, well, do both, and they're like, oh, so it'll be interesting to see what they decide, but they're really enthusiastic and excited about the work that they did. Heidi, I'm looking at you, and you were just a great MC, you and Jessica, so thank you, and Wade being the fish, and it was just a really fun night. And
there are multiple pieces I've continued to think about afterwards that just caused me to smile. It was a very good, fun.
Us too, and and we had our own little tiny party at our house, just our family, but we made it really a fun thing, and I think a lot of families did that, and people who had kids and grandparents, and we said that was kind of a plus this year, that more people got engaged in the process. And yet there's something really beautiful about being on site and being able to. So it'll be interesting to see what the committee decides next year, but we know it'll be a huge success either way. The other thing that I feel like were some real highlights at our meeting the other day is one is that Bob and I are going to be meeting with the foundation and going over our MOU. And a team of us met to talk about what we felt we needed from the district